a feeling the next division is going to be a little bit harder to predict. The AFC East, for my money, one of the most loaded, one of the most intriguing divisions in football this year. That's why I'm enlisting some help. I've got my friend Henry Mckenna, Fox Sports' AFC East writer, here to help me parse through it all. With apologies to every other division in football, we're about to preview the most interesting one for 2023. Yes, I said it. The 2023 AFC East. Arguably the most loaded, definitely, for my money, the most interesting division in the league this year. And to do that, I figured with so many good teams to talk about, we could use a little bit of help. So I called my good buddy at Fox Sports, Henry Mckenna. He is our AFC East writer. Henry, thank you so much for the time. Good to see you, man.
Yeah, Dave, always good to be here. Always good to catch up.
So, I mean, first of all, like, do you agree with me? I mean, the storylines here with these four teams, I just think it's juicy content all the way through. And I just think this is going to be one of the most scintillating divisions in the entire league.
Yeah, you nailed it. I mean, I think they probably are the most interesting division in the league. Bring in Aaron Rodgers to a division that already has Josh Allen, Bill Belichick, and even Tua is pretty fascinating, particularly with Mike McDaniel, but the concussion stuff going on, the contract stuff ongoing with him. So every team has a big storyline. And frankly, I mean, you could argue every team has a shot to win the Super Bowl, but the Patriots, it would be a little bit of a stretch. You'd just be like banking on Belichick making them relevant.
You're absolutely right. We will get to them, and trust me, we'll get to Aaron Rodgers, but it seems respectful and fair to start with the guys that have run the show for the last 4 years, the Buffalo Bills. We know all about Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. We know about Sean McDermott. This is one of the premier teams in the league. But the interesting thing about the Bills is Aaron Rodgers shows up on the scene and everybody's trying to close their championship window. Like, that's what I'm hearing all summer, is that, you know, this could be it for the Bills. Don't worry about the fact that they've been one of the most dominant teams in the league, one of the winningest teams in the league for the last 4 years. People are trying to close the window. So as the guy on the ground, I would love to know, do the Bills still have control of this division? Are they still the favorites?
Definitely. I think that the incoming Aaron Rodgers talk, the fact that the Jets might surpass the Bills, it's premature. Their offensive line has big problems. Aaron Rodgers really has Garrett Wilson to throw to, and like Allen Lazard, who Aaron Rodgers really likes, but I'm not sure that I really like. And so I think people are getting a little too excited about the Jets, and the Bills are kind of like, everybody was overly excited maybe about the Bills last year. And I think they've kind of, they don't want to get out of the spotlight, but they faded a little bit, and that might benefit them a little bit, especially. We cannot underestimate the impact that the Damar Hamlin health situation had on that roster at the end of the season. I'm sure the emotions were intense. It was a lot to handle. And that really happened heading into the playoffs. So they've kind of, with Hamlin healthy and back on the football field, I think they can kind of move forward a little bit, and they don't have that weighing on them as much. And they can kind of just, like, if anything, it's an incredible storyline to have Hamlin on the team and have that energize them, rather than having the emotions being a little more complicated. So I think the Bills probably have the monkey off their back. They're not like the team to beat necessarily, but they are a team that won 13 wins last year in this extremely competitive division. And Aaron Rodgers, as much as I really like him, he's not going to suddenly make the roster better, I think, than an already elite Bills team.
One thing I'm curious about the Bills, we know Von Miller's starting the season on the PUP, the physically unable to perform list. It means he's going to miss at least a month. Do you think the Bills have the juice on defense without Von Miller? We know they have a great secondary. We know Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde are back healthy this year. Is that enough to overcome what looks like kind of a lacking pass rush without Von Miller?
Yeah, and I don't want to go too hard against you, but I do think that you're underestimating what they have, actually, which is Ed Oliver, Gregory Rousseau.
Tell me I'm wrong. Let's go.
Floyd.
Yeah, healthy debate, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. I think, honestly, those guys are better than maybe you think. The reason they brought in Leonard Floyd was for this exact sort of stopgap option, to make sure that they had someone to cover for these weeks that Von Miller will be out. It's not like they didn't see this coming. They did, and Brandon Beane had a plan for it. So you get a guy like Gregory Rousseau, who I think is on the verge of putting up big numbers. You've got Leonard Floyd, who's a proven entity. I mean, he's not going to be Von Miller. Nobody's going to be Von Miller. But this defense, especially under the leadership of Sean McDermott, has the potential to be good, very good. I mean, they were a really good defense all of last year. They kind of buckled in the playoffs and had some pretty bad performances against like the Dolphins and Skylar Thompson, which was bizarre. But under McDermott's leadership, I think this defense, I think they get more out of a lot of the young talent that they have, and so it'll just be like bonus when Von Miller comes back. After week 6 maybe or something like that, depending on the knee. But I think we'll see a very good Bills defense. Actually, the place I'm worried most for the Bills is cornerback 2. Which is it seems like a ticky-tack spot, but you and I both know that it could be a hugely, that could be your Achilles heel for defense.
It seems like a small problem until you have that problem. Absolutely. Let's stick in the East, but go very far south. The Miami Dolphins, I think one of the most intriguing teams in the entire league. And the reason why I say that is when you look at the roster, man, it's about as loaded as it gets with the ultimate question at quarterback, and that unfortunately is Tua Tagovailoa and his health, his ability to play a whole season. So for me, it seems like the Dolphins' entire hope of success hinges on Tua. Do you think that's fair to say Tua is facing a make or break season here in 23?
Yeah, both things are fair to say. Absolutely a make or break season. I mean, look at the contract situation of some of his peers from his draft class, right? Like Justin Herbert, he's got a contract extension. Tua, meanwhile, there was some uncertainty about whether he'd get a 5th-year option picked up. So every time you have like a real question about a player standing in the league, go to the guaranteed dollars, go to the money, follow the money, and you'll see, just how legit a team cares, or is it literally invested in a player? And in this case, you see some tenuous emotions, tenuous feelings between GM Chris Greer, Coach Mike McDaniel, and Tua. Everybody's saying the right things, but the dollar doesn't show what they're saying. There's a dichotomy there. So absolutely. Tua's got to prove it to his organization. Now, the flip side is if he has a season like he had the first 11 games before, we started to see the concussions crop up. If he has what I thought was, an MVP caliber or consideration season, then they're going to be paying him an absurd amount of money. So they've risked it to see, whether Tua can stay healthy, whether he can perform at a high level, not just a whole regular season, but into the postseason. So there's so much we don't really know about Tua Tagovailoa. And, I think it's fascinating, like you said, to just see how this season unfolds for him. I think he and the Dolphins in general, because they don't have a great backup. Mike White, is a good backup quarterback. He was solid for the Jets, but he's actually, we saw in preseason, he didn't quite show the command of the offense that I think the Dolphins would want to see against vanilla coverages. So that puts even more pressure on Tua's plate to play well.
It's funny to think. I mean, look, Lamar Jackson got his contract. Jalen Hurts got his contract. Justin Herbert. And we know at some point Joe Burrow is going to get his. I don't think there's a player in the league with more riding on this season, for better or for worse, than Tua Tagovailoa. So, like I said, for my money, one of the most interesting teams in the league. You kind of hinted at it, Henry, and I'm sorry to anybody in the New England area. Let's move to a less interesting team, in my opinion, the New England Patriots. But here's the thing, Henry. See, I want to try this take on for size with you, which is that if New England played in almost any other division, we would feel a heck of a lot better about their prospects. But they don't. Yeah. They play here with these juggernauts. And that's why I want to know, playing in the AFC East with 3 teams that have real Super Bowl aspirations, what is the Patriots' ceiling? I mean, what can we expect from these guys knowing that they're trying to win one of the toughest divisions in the league?
Yeah. I mean, Bill Belichick, anything's possible, right? But we've seen a different Bill Belichick, a mortal Bill Belichick, a perfectly 500 Bill Belichick since the departure of Tom Brady. So I think there's definitely a lot of pessimism swirling around his competency right now, as if they've somehow ended up at the bottom of the league, but they haven't. They're just like Jeff Fishering. They're like right in the middle of the league. They're sort of like, you can't go 8-8 anymore, but that's kind of the vibe that they've had. And so I don't know, like this defense is very good and Bill Belichick will do well to get the most out of it. It just, the biggest question is Bill O'Brien. Can Bill O'Brien get Mac Jones? Maybe not necessarily, like it's a kind of a low bar to get him to get Mac Jones back to the rookie year. Because if you look at the stats, his rookie year wasn't like amazing. And we just saw him nosedive last year. But if Mac Jones can sort of go back on that upward trajectory that we kind of thought that maybe he would be, like a game manager, I don't know, like an Alex Smith type, somebody who is smart, someone who makes quick decisions, who doesn't turn over the football. That's kind of like the opposite of what we saw from Mac Jones last year. We saw a slow decision maker, a guy who was making stupid turnovers. So you put Bill O'Brien into that offense. And then the question is, does he completely transform Mac Jones to be the guy that kind of we thought he was going to be? You know, think back to when everybody was like, we can't believe Mac Jones ended up in Bill Belichick's lap. Like, that felt like a coup 2 years ago, and now it feels like sort of a disaster. So I think we're probably going to land somewhere in between, and Bill O'Brien needs to be the guy that makes Mac Jones into the guy that was more an offensive rookie of the year candidate, and last year less of like a backup caliber looking guy. If Mac Jones is, let's say a top 16, top 17 quarterback, because there's actually a pretty good threshold right in the mediocre area of the league right now, then this team can make the playoffs. And then if you can make the playoffs, then I don't know. The AFC is sort of tough to say you could make the Super Bowl because it's so competitive, but I think they'll be competitive to make the playoffs this year.
Nothing would be more this league than the New England Patriots making the playoffs, knowing that they've got to play 6 games against these teams. Let's save arguably the most intriguing for last. The New York Jets, man. What else is there to say? They got their own TV show. They've been in the headlines since April, and for good reason, because they've got a 4-time MVP calling the shots. Aaron Rodgers. It doesn't, like, we don't have to. Some teams you want to do a boatload of research for. It doesn't feel necessary here. Can Aaron Rodgers turn the Jets into contenders? The longest playoff drought in the league. And now you have arguably the most accomplished quarterback of the last decade, other than Tom Brady. We'll leave him out of it. But you get my point. How are we feeling about this team? I'll be honest. Robert Saleh's speech to the offensive line on Hard Knocks scared me. Like that made me nervous for Aaron Rodgers. Am I overreacting? How do we feel about the Jets?
Yeah. Well, first of all, Patrick Mahomes is probably the most decorated quarterback over the last 10 years.
I deserve that.
And he hasn't been playing the last 10 years. But anyway, or just a fraction of it. But yes, Aaron Rodgers, I think there are some worries. Like for example, Mike Evans suddenly there's a contract dispute that seems sort of like on the fritz over in Tampa, and all of a sudden Twitter is kind of ablaze. Like, what about Mike Evans to the Jets? What about Aaron Rodgers maybe throwing some footballs to Mike Evans? I think that points at, like, not that Twitter knows necessarily what it's talking about at all times, but Garrett Wilson is like on track to catch 2,000 yards of Aaron Rodgers' passing offense. They really don't have the best second option. And that's just kind of like one of their champagne problems, I'd say. Mekhi Becton's their right tackle. And while, he's a really high caliber player in theory, he actually hasn't played since, I think, week 1 of 2021, I think. So it's been a minute since we've really seen him in a regulation football game. On the left side, their left tackle's coming back from a shoulder injury. So I don't know. I think they are dealing with bigger issues than people kind of realize on offense. and Aaron Rodgers is kind of like the media panacea. Like everybody just thinks that it's going to be chill and dandy.
Guilty.
But ultimately, that offense, it could have some problems early in the season, whether it's gelling in the passing game because Rodgers isn't getting enough protection or he doesn't have enough guys getting open. I think one place they probably won't have problems is the run game because they doubled up at running back this offseason by getting Dalvin Cook. And if nothing else, they can make use of Dalvin and Breece as check down options to give Aaron Rodgers, a little bit of outlet space and some guys that'll generate yards after the catch just naturally. One place where there's no question, I think, is on their defense. They are, without a doubt, young, enormously talented. I guess the one thing I worry for them is all they've been doing is talking about championships. All they've been doing has been setting up huge expectations for themselves. And given that they are young, I do wonder whether there's a small dream team effect, whether like maybe, they get a little bit too into themselves and that they kind of just expect that they will have success. And the division is a place where that cannot happen, that they have to be hungry like they were last year. And so, if they regress, then this team actually will fail, I think, to meet expectations, especially in New York, where things can just like snowball out of control in terms of negativity. So they're so fascinating, and they are like right on to use the cliche, right on the razor edge of being like a Super Bowl contender and also maybe being a flop.
Big expectations in the biggest media market in the league. What could go wrong? All right, Henry, real quick. We don't have a lot of time, but most loaded division in the league. I'm going to put you on the spot. I need your division winner, and I need your rationale in like a sentence or less. Let's do it.
Yeah, give me the Buffalo Bills, and my rationale is Josh Allen.
I don't think you really need to say a whole lot more, to be honest with you. I'm stepping out on a limb. Look, I just made fun of people burying the Bills. I don't know why I'm doing this, but I'm so intrigued in the Dolphins. If they can get even 16 games, 15 games out of Tua Tagovailoa, the firepower's there. The defense is incredible. Vic Fangio's there. They got talent at all three levels. Stay healthy, Tua, because I think if you do, it's going to be incredible. So for better or for worse, I'm riding with the Dolphins. Can't wait to see how well that ages.